Hi everyone. I hope you're all doing well. This is Nick Sherry from Media Monday, and we're celebrating a very special day. It's the winter solstice. The light is once again starting to increase, as also, uh, and what's when it starts to get bright out there, we know exactly what happens. We start to see things much clearer. And there's a lot that's been happening during the this year, 2020, which has given us a lot of clairvoyance, a lot of clarity in what's happening. And we're here to just talk a little bit about it, just share our thoughts. Joining us is Kenneth Winter and Eduardo, uh, just to share our thoughts about what's currently happening in the world and how to observe it, and what are our personal thoughts about it, and then to share a bit of what we think is going to happen moving forward, how we can absorb all these experiences and prepare ourselves for how we are going to take on 2021. And to give share a few thoughts, here is Kenneth, who is a very well-known personality in the startup scene here in Norway, and he will start off with a few words. Hi, Kenneth.
Hi, Nick. Can you hear me well?
I can hear you very well, yes.
Okay, thank you, and good to see you guys. So, and thank you for that introduction. As you may know, I've been living in London for 3 years, but I'm back in Norway with my family. UK is not the right place to be at the moment, with especially if you have children. So,
Especially now, because there seems to be a lot of problems with supposedly new strand of virus which has come out, and they're tightening their lockdown, and they're running out of food, and a lot of other activity that's happening. So yeah, I'm pretty sure that you're pretty happy that you made it out of UK on time.
yeah, I have some friends that would like to leave this week, but from today, it's Norway has stopped all travel from the UK. So for the time being, it's not an option. Okay, so thank you for inviting me, and I would very much appreciate if are people able to comment and to chat in this.
I do believe so, yes.
Yeah,
I do believe, yeah.
because if they are, I would very much like people to post questions, and if you only can see them, you can put them to me, because I would like to know one thing from the people that participate, and that is. What is the one thing that is most important to you these days in relation to these issues, of course, because it would allow me to see if there's any of the points we could touch upon in the few minutes we have together. But until we see that, because I can only see the StreamYard window with you, Nick. So if there's any share you have to do, so please do that. So
Yeah.
so my journey has been a long one since 2001 with the falling of the two towers, and that was exactly 19 years ago, right? So,
Mm.
and then and that started a journey for me where I had friends that were in the towers, and I had calls from companies that were in the towers wanting me to invest. So I followed some of the companies that went down with that, and then some 10 years later, we had this vaccination story in Norway, and I was in Norway with my family at that time, and then I realized that this is not going to look very, very good, the swine flu, influenza. And we have children that are we have some with asthma and in my family, so we were very cautious, and we had to find out, is this really something we should actually do? And when I found out more, and I found court rulings and everything, and things that are hidden from the public, I started to worry, to warn my friends and everyone I met. Of course, I was ridiculed at the time, and it's so sad to see now, 10 years later, that there are still 800 people fighting to get their their money from what they're entitled to, because the government made decisions that were not well founded at the time. And they pushed an agenda, and where people actually that made the decisions were involved also in GlaxoSmithKline as shareholders. I'm talking about the Stoltenberg family, of course. And they controlled they controlled both what the public would spend their money on, what came out in the media, and what was pushed from the health authorities, which they were all part of. And I thought there's something wrong with that, and I don't trust that. And then, of course, now we have the proof with the 4 children that died from the vaccines. 400 people already got the money as a retribution to this. And there's no remedy in that, of course, but at least it helps the parents if you have children with lifelong sickness. And then there are still people fighting. And that for a disease that never killed anyone. I think there were 2 children that died in Ukraine, and that's it across Europe. So that started a journey for me where I needed to find out what does this mean, and why is this important to us. And probably just as for you, I had to start asking some questions, and I saw that there are 2 central things to this, to everything that is happening and going on today. And that is, on one side, it's the freedom part, where it seems we're not free to do what we were before, right? And of course, you can track this back to not only 19 years to that 2001, where we were taken away our freedoms by law. So anyone can go to jail, and you can be abducted, even from foreign powers, and put into jail for a long, long time without any remedy whatsoever. And of course, 19 years before that, when the vaccine law was put into place, where companies had indemnity for whatever they chose to do with your body. And so I had to look into it, and I feel there's something around freedom with this, and the loss of freedom. And then on the other side, there's something around worry, like we are constantly worrying more, and should we be worrying? And that's the question. So I would like to see a world where we can have more freedom to design and live the lives we want and that we'd like, and where we have less worry and more chance of remedy if someone actually hurts us. And the good part about the worry side is that worry is a feeling, and it's something we all own, and no one else can own that feeling. It's something that we decide how we will treat that. And that means that once it's a feeling, we can actually do really something about it. And then what's the remedy of worry? How can you deal with that? And that it's probably the same as with freedoms. And that's something I discovered after 2-3 years of really deep research, is that worry and freedom actually has the same type of remedy. You can actually approach that with one thing, and that is education. If you know more, if you have knowledge about, and not so much about what's going on and who's doing it, but what are your options, and what do you need to adhere to, and what don't you need to adhere to, and who is actually to decide over your life, your body, your identity, and your expression and everything like that. So it goes all the way back to, and that's where, when you start that journey, it takes you down a road where you discover more and more. Like, there are many rabbit holes, of course, and most people don't take that route to go so deep. I felt I had to do that with a few friends, and what I discovered was that the knowledge, it all resides in law. And this sounds a little strange, like it's all written in law, and it's all in language, and it's all about jurisdiction. So jurisdiction is about who can decide what for whom, right? And the law is the regulating language of this. And then when you discover even the Bible was written like a law paper, like a description of law. And the Bibles that were burnt, during in Germany and across Europe, during the Second World War, but it was also burned consecutively in different occasions. And what were they so afraid of that they actually burned? And if you look that up, you will find that in the early Bibles there was an illustration in the opening pages that's either torn out or the entire book is gone there. And there are two left in the world, they claim. And if you can get a hold of that picture, it says it's about the tree of life and the tree of knowledge. It's one tree, but there it describes in the Bible as one of the front pages. You can see on the one side it's that tree of life, meaning all your private birthrights and how that law is governed. And then on the other side you have the tree of knowledge of good and evil, which is all about the government, the state, the legal law system, where it's governing people, and that's where you can have a lot of fruits. You can have free education. You can have limited liability of doing wrong. You can have many different fruits of that type of system. But once you eat of that fruit, once you take that fruit, you're also bound by the limited rights you have in that system. So this is a good way to see and learn. And so my journey was one of trying to find out, what does this mean? And if you read up on it, it's quite easy to find, because this is where the remedy is. So you have two types of laws. I didn't know that at all. You have many law systems, but remember that anything that happens in the world happens. Most things happen by design, by plan. If you have unlimited resources, you tend to get what you really want. Okay, let's just start with that. And that means that, but then there's no one that is doing just erratic things and figuring out new ways to screw others. That's not how it works. They feel perfectly entitled to do what they do, and they feel that what they're doing is the right thing. You have to remember that. And where do they claim that authority to do so? They claim it from law. They claim it from the law system, like things that are written in law. And this is why they also always, and you can check this out, always change laws before things happen. So if you look back in 2017 of different laws passed in the US, for instance, that today proved to be very valuable when you want to give the entire population a vaccine, for instance, or if you want to track them. Laws were put into place way before what happened. So, and it's only with those changes in laws they can, by the state and the government and the big corporate organizations across the world, they can cooperate to actually impose things on you. That's what they claim. So they then believe they have jurisdiction. They have the full right to do something because it's in law. And laws are passed, and like Norway is trying to have changed their biotechnology law, and they're trying to change the laws of the vaccines, and they're trying to do several different things. And this happens all across the world now. But most important laws are changed way before, of course. But the point is, they cannot do things that are not written in law. And this is where it becomes very good, because your freedom and your unnecessary worry can be relieved by having knowledge about that's how it works. That's how the entire system works. That there are two types, there are two worlds today. So anyone that believes Matrix is just a trilogy of movies, they should watch it again, please, and watch it with this perception. It's like you have on one side you have the private, where when you are born, you are not born in sin. You're not born in definite debt to someone else that lived before you, or to a system that lived before you. You're born with complete freedoms, and you can decide whatever you want. Of course, if you took that route and thought about it, of course, that's the right thing. That's how it should be. And you have total equity right as a share of anyone that lives on this planet. And then, but then someone very gradually shows you that, but there was someone before you, or we're a state and we need to take care of everyone. And since people can't take care of themselves, we need to take care of them in the legal system. So you're not free to do whatever you want, and you are in debt to everything that happens. You have to pay for the water that's on Earth. You have to pay for the energy that we collected in taxes, build the systems, and then we charge you in addition for producing it and delivering it to you. So all the things are in two part system. It's one in the private where you actually have the freedom to do whatever you want, and then the other one is where you have the state government legal system. And if you thought the legal system is the same as law, that's one set of law systems. So anything that is in commerce or in state or in government, that's something that is called the legal system. It has its own language called legalese. And if you think the words in legalese are the same as you have in English or in Norwegian, you're completely wrong. A person in legal terms is just look this up, please. A person in legal terms is something completely different than your body, your spirit, and your life, right? A legal person could be a boat, it could be a building, it could be, and if it's about you, it's all about you as a legal participant in the system. It's not you. And here's where the remedy is as well. So when governments pose rules about masks and travel bans and everything like that, you can go along with it. If you want the tree of knowledge of good and evil, and you want the fruits, and you want to say, I want free money from the government, and I want, you can decide to take that and say, in return, I'll do as you say. But each instance is a decision that you make. And this is even in the UK, this is very clear, because all the policing, they all say, we need the trust of the people. And then people think, in general. And we need the consent of the people. And then people think, in general. No, it's not in general. It's every time they ask you something, they say, do you understand? Do you stand under my jurisdiction? And if you say no, they say, okay, fine. And then they have to leave. They can try and impose things on you, but the point is they know that if you know that there are two systems here, and their legal system can only approach you and make you do what they want if they make an offer and you accept it. But you don't need to say, yes, I accept the offer of fine, for instance. You don't need to say that. They can just ask, what's your name and address, please? And if you give them that, you have consented to them having your name and address, and then they can, by presumption of law, assume that you wanted to stand under their authority, and they can give you the bill, and they can go to court to claim it. So the point is, but if you act in the private, you say, I'm not here in commerce, I'm not doing the state, I'm not on the payroll of states or governments. I'm not in the legal, I'm not my legal person when I'm here. So it doesn't matter if I showed you my driver's license, which is a legal document. Now I'm just me, right? It doesn't matter if I show you my passport. It's a legal document. It's me. And I'm not here in commerce. I'm traveling here as a private person. Then there's nothing they can do. They can not take you to court. You don't need to consent and stuff like that. So the point is, but there are many tricks of the trade here. So, of course, states and governments, they need to make sure that the people think about this. Their prime purpose is to survive as an entity. Of course, society breaks down. In their view, society breaks down unless you adhere to all the state and government rules. But so they will never allow anything to happen if they could avoid it. But the only way they can actually enforce it is by the legal system and their statutes. And if you look at the language, you will always see what's what. In the legal systems, there's nothing called this is the law. It says this is a statute, it's an act, it's a code, it's a guideline. There are all these types of language. In real law, in the private, things God given to you. It's called natural law, and that's where you are you. You are your body and your spirit and your soul. This sounds a little bit strange, but if you dive into your body, of course, you should believe that you own. In the legal system, you don't. You've signed it away. And that's why someone can actually enforce vaccines on you, because they claim they own your body, because you signed to that you do. You signed it. When you register your car, you register. Register is a law term. It's a legal term, not a law term. There's no registering in the private. So if you register your car, you have signed your car away to the state government, and that means that's the only way they can take it away. If you're caught speeding or whatever, they can impound your car, or if you don't pay your parking tickets, is because they already own it, because you signed it away. Do you see the principle here? So all the things when you act in the legal, you don't own anything. You don't own your own children. That's why they can actually impose vaccinations on them if you live in and act in the legal system and you follow that legal system procedures. And this is why voting is not a private action. Right. In today's system, that's a legal system. So whenever you vote or you protest, the legal system, the state, the government can say, yes, you have accepted that we're in jurisdiction, we have right to decide, and you might not agree with us, and we might decide to change it because you don't, but if we don't, you have to follow it.
Exactly. I think that's one of the interesting examples is Jim in the United States, I think in Pasadena. Despite all the lockdowns, he just opened the gym and said anyone can come and train and no need for masks or anything. And he's got so many fines, but he just ignored all the fines. So I think it's instead of protesting, we should just go on with what we continue doing, because as long as we don't consent. And one of the questions that popped up here is that how, for example, if the government poses a mandatory vaccination, how are we going to, how are people going to not adhere to that? How is the process right now?
Yeah, so if you want my views on it, of course, this is not legal advice or lawful advice even. So, but here's how we're dealing with it, right? So you need to have really, really simple principles in your mind. That's how we treat it. At least we say, okay, so but if we were born today on planet Earth and we decided to do whatever we want, would we need to do it? And if the answer is no, then no one can actually force you to do it. Unless you accept to be under their jurisdiction. And that means that they need to move you to the legal system. And they do that in very dubious ways, right? So, for instance, they will never attest to this unless you go down the path of doing this in court. You will find out, but then they will rule and they will not put it in the rulings. I have proof of this because they don't want this out. But the point is they already own your children. I'm not kidding. So they own your children, they own your body if you don't reject that they own it, right? So the point is, so they can use the legal system to put you through a court case, for instance, or put you in front of a judge, and he can rule that either we're taking your children or you're vaccinating them. For instance, they can do that, unless you claim that you were never willingly signing them away, and they have no right. Because but then there are many tricks, right? There are many traps to this. If for instance they ask you, do you understand? And then if you say yes, you are standing under. If you say I overstand, I'm not in your legal system, and I'm not that legal person with the name in all caps that are on my driver's license or on paper. The court is actually the paper. I'm not kidding. So in their jurisdiction, the court is the paper that is served. So it means that if your name is on the paper, it's not you. It's a legal person. So then you have all the rights in the world, not taking responsibility for that legal person, but you have to state it, right? And this means that, so when it comes to this particular issue, I would do the following. I would make sure that I put in writing and with my own autograph, not signature, that's sign of nature in the legal system. So look it up. It's a sign that someone claimed the liability for this legal entity. So anytime you give your signature, you're writing away your rights. But if you put an autograph, which could look different or the same, that's not the point, but it's not called a signature because that's a legal term. If you sign with autographs or even your thumbprint, which is you, it has to be you. It's you as a live person, and a machine can't have a fingerprint that is it's the right one for you, right? So it means that you can claim the right of the body of yourself and your children. And if someone tries to, and you do that before you go to the point where you're taking to court or wherever, you have to document it and you have to make it public that you did it. So you could go to a notarius publicus to get it certified. You can file it to court so that it's already in the court system before you have to enter the court system, so they can never claim that you never did it or this is something you found out just now. There are many different things like this. It sounds a little bit complicated, but it's actually so much easier than most people think, because it's about you. What can you actually do? If you think about it, who can decide what you should do? And I have to say, I living in the UK for a while and dealing with some of the richest people on the planet, I got, flabbergasted about how they live and what they do. When they showed me that it's perfectly by your consent that you have to pay tax. Like, if you don't want to pay tax, you don't do it. Or it's perfectly by your consent that you register a company to start, to start a company. You register it. You don't need to do that. It's perfectly, all these things are voluntary. But there's a lot of bribes in it, of course, for you. That if you do it, you can get less tax and stuff like that. But the point is, all of that is fiction. It's something you choose to do if you want to. And then, of course, if you know that all the taxes and everything that is imposed on you actually is a tax over time of approximately 80% of all the money that it comes through you, that inflows, then it's a quite big difference if you never pay that. So the rich people, what do you think they do? So the point is, you need to know that you as a private, as an individual, not as a legal person, but as an individual, you can decide whatever you want. And then you can claim that right whenever you want. I'm not saying it's easy. And the thing is, there's so many tricks to trick you into taking responsibility for the legal part. So, but you don't need to. But sometimes you would want to. You would want to go on the tube, for instance, because it's easy. But you don't want to pay their fines if you don't wear a mask. So, and then you don't need to. But you should then never give them your name, because the name is not owned by you. I'm not kidding. The name is a legal fiction. Read the Bible. It said when Joseph and Mary went to Bethlehem to be written into the voters' registry. What do you think that was all about? It was to register all the people in the land, to give them a tax entity so they can be taxed. That's what it was all about. And when in the Bible they say, I'm not a Christian, that's not the point, but the Bible is a law book, right? So it says, do not use thy father's name in vain. It means don't use your last name together with your first name, because your last name is not owned by you, it's owned by the state. And if you use it, they can then say, oh, that's you. You said you were this legal person, so now we can tax you. I'm not kidding. This is strange, but it's true. So I think the best advice I can give is like, make sure you know what's the difference of government, states, the legal system, and what's your birthrights. And birthrights are really, really simple. There are only two rules, and so the one is act in honor. No, sorry. So do no harm. Sorry, do no harm, and act in honor. And act in honor means honor your agreements. Whatever agreement you make with someone, honor it. So don't make agreements you don't intend to keep, right? And that means that you have incredible freedom. So your freedom is indefinite, it's unalienable, and unlimited. So no one can impose any limitations to those birthrights on you, except if you do, of course, someone harm. So if someone comes and says, yeah, you're not wearing a mask, so you're a threat to society, for instance, you say, so, okay, so then you can just use this like, okay, so who did I harm? So, because there has to be a victim here if I did something wrong. So who did I harm? So they say society in general. No, that's not who. That's it doesn't count. It has to be named people. If they say, this one in okay, so let's take down their names then, right? Okay, so now we have their names. So how were they harmed? And then they need to have serious reason to believe that they were actually harmed. And this is why it's a difference if you are sick and you actually go up to the face of someone and start coughing in their face. That seems like an intent to harm, right? That's a very big difference. But if you're going about your business and doing nothing, who was harmed? Who was the victim? And what was the harm caused, right? And then it needs to be probable cause for actual harm to have been caused for anyone to be able to do things in the law system, not in the legal system. The law system is where you're judged by a jury. It's a criminal offense, right? So and that's where you need to. And then when you look at the language of everything, like the state of Norway or even the municipality of Oslo, their rules, read it really. Does it say law? It never says law. Does it say that it says that you can be fined so and such? Who's that? Who can be fined? And they say you can't be together with people. Who is it? And then you read through the whole thing very meticulously, look at the language. Then you will discover that most things are not even written as if they can actually even enforce it, or it's just by your presumption or assumption that it means you. Many times it doesn't mean you even, right? And this is why the state and government and legal system, they can make rules and regulations for all registered businesses, for instance, that they need to follow. So when I walk into a store without a mask, they ask me, but you're required to have a mask. I said, thank you for advising me. I know that as a company, you are under the government jurisdiction, so you have to say that, because you have to adhere with the rules, or else they will close your business. So thank you for doing that. I appreciate that, and you will keep in business. But am I required to follow it? And then most of the people say, oh, no, of course not. Because they actually even have been informed. I'm not kidding. But some people don't know. Then that's sad, of course, because then they can be scared or afraid that you're entering and you don't have a mask. Then I decide just to leave them alone. Then you just walk into another store, and then, yeah. And this even applies to restaurants and everything.
What about airlines?
That's a bit more difficult one, because there's something called passport, and pass means you have a free pass, and a port is a government-controlled entity. So you can't fly from anywhere. If you had a private plane, you could go wherever you want, right? But if you don't have that, you have to pass through this, and then they decide what the rules and regulation for that are. They are not allowed to they're not allowed to withdraw your rights to freely journey wherever you want, right? They're not allowed to. But since they control those ports, it's very hard for you. There are solutions to this, but it's who wants to do it, But if you think about how the legal system actually works, you can use it against them. What does this mean? It means that if the state government, the legal system has made this system where they just put the price on something, and then you have to pay it. And if you don't pay it or rebut it with the right process, they take you to court and they take your money whatever way they want, right? So if you think about it, so if they made this system, it must be because it works. It's a 2,000-year-old system. Think about that. That means it works. So why don't we turn it around and say, let me turn it around and use it against you? So what does this mean? It means that if someone makes claims against you that are unfair, you can not only say that these are not claims I do accept, I don't accept that offer, unless you can provide proof. Because if there's a conflict, they will take you to court, and they are in their right to do so. So you don't want to create a conflict. You say, I'm perfectly fine with that if you can just prove it, but I haven't accepted your offer, whatever claim they're making, your offer. And then they still go after you and say, that's fair. Now I told you there's no offer, but you're using this name, and I've claimed the right of that name. So it means it's my patent. You can't use that name. And every time you use that name, here's the price list. So I'm going to charge you $10,000 each time you write to me with that name, because that's not your entity, it's mine. I've claimed the right to that, and no one has rebutted it. I posted it, I own it. So whenever time you use it, I'm going to bill you. And if you take me to court, that's $150,000 each day in court for representing that legal name in court, if I have to do that. So, and then, of course, they will just laugh, fair enough. But when you send the invoice, I'm not kidding, that's by the legal system's own rules. They can't just reject it. They have to rebut it. Then they have to do the process. Do you see? So you have to think two things. One is, when am I in the legal system or want to be that? And when I'm in the private system, where I'm completely free to do whatever I want. And make sure you don't mix these two before you know what you're doing. And then the other thing is if you're in the legal system, use the same system against those that come after you, right?
I think yeah. So we're running out of time. So, but I think that this is a much more deeper conversation that we want to go to. But one of the questions that popped up is that, of course, this is a lot of information to absorb, and how could we actually make this work for us? Is there a way that we could have access to this legal information whenever we need it? And do we have anything of that sort that we could ideally look at?
Yes, when myself and a group of people that got together to map out what is this about, and how does it work, and how do the really, really rich people deal with it, and how does governments deal with it, and so there are many sad stories here, and people that are so good, they've done incredible things. They had to even leave the country because the government is chasing them down, because they actually exposed what the government is doing against private folks. And so we had to work a little bit behind the scenes and find out, okay, so what can we actually do? And we had to use the same things on ourselves. We know that if we, so I've done many different things now, just as an experiment. I've dropped paying some bills that I thought, that was a little bit high. I don't think that was right. Instead of just, that's a small amount of money, let's just pay it. So I've used these processes now on many different things, just to make sure I know what happens and how it works, and know that it's true what I'm saying. So what we found out is that we need to get together, and we need to build this education, and we need to build a way to actually be able to secure our rights and to protect them, and even seek a remedy for them. And we need to do that in wise ways, where it's easy, right? You don't need to walk with your law book in your pocket, right? You don't need to know the entire legal system. You don't need to know all the process, all the stuff you need to know. the thing is, once you've done it once and it works, it will work always, almost, right? So at least if 2, 3 people have done it, you know that it will work again and again and again. So why don't we then, instead of leaving people alone with their problems, with their worries, and with their limited freedoms, why don't we act together, where all of us try different things and then we put it together, and then, like the 19-year-old that got a parking ticket at a curb in California, and then he discovered that the rebuttal process was incredible. It was made so that you won't succeed, right? And then he just said, okay, I'm a programmer, I'll do it once. And then he figured out how to do it. And then now anyone in California can just take a snapshot of their parking ticket and then immediately start the rebuttal and claim process, and that means that the authorities are overwhelmed with 3,000 parking tickets, rebuttal claims every single day. This is how we need to do it. And that's where technology is wonderful. So the technology they use to track us and to control us can also be used for the opposite, of course. So yes, we need to engage. And I think Nick is the one that could potentially be the right connection point to this, because I think you're about to round up people that want to be part of this and to take this through next year and make sure that by the end of next year, we can act in complete freedom and with way less worry, and we can design the life we want, and we can live the life we want, and we can decide when do we want to be part of the legal system and have the fruits of that. But by the same time, because we've contributed to it, and we are contributing to it in every way, and when can we actually act in the private and decide whatever we want. And remember, the weakness is if you're alone. And this is the entire system is built on smaller and smaller units, right? So it's you individually that has to meet the government for and that's an unfair game. If we're 100 people, it's very big difference. If we're starting invoicing the government every time they do something wrong, it won't stand for them, right? And if one has done it and 2 has done it, then it cracks down, right? So. And it's not so difficult. It's way easier than we thought. We thought we had to learn all about the law. We don't. We just need to know when are we what and what are the rules of engagement in each one. And,
Perfect.
Easier. Okay.
Yeah, I think. Thank you very much, Kenneth, for your time and explaining everything so clearly. And I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people here who would like to have a much longer session with you, which we will be having later on. We'll be informing you about that. And of course, it's good news for us to hear that there is a way out of the system where we can live in peace and freedom, and not under all this tyranny, because this is not just something that applies to us here in Europe, but everyone in every part of the world. So once again, thank you very much, Kenneth, for your time. We really appreciate the valuable information, and we hope to have a much longer discussion with you and hear more about this.
Thank you, Nick. I'm hoping everyone will live with the max freedom and the minimum worry they need forward, and it is possible. I can attest to that, and I hope people will find their ways to do that. Okay, cheers.
A pleasure having you. Cheers. Bye. Well, there you go. That was Kenneth Winter giving us an insight into how to live a happy life, despite the fact that we see governments now suppressing us and putting us into all these unwanted psychological and physical difficulties. So keep following us here on Media Monday podcast, where we'll be giving you much more information in regarding this. And for the meantime, this is Nick Sheriff signing off. Thank you.